Hello, it's me, Waifu Belector, the only fair human on Earth, here to talk about two of the same game. Well, not exactly. The games I'll be discussing today are Predecessor and Overprime. Two games I've been playing a lot of lately, and so I wanted to discuss what was good or bad about each of them in comparison to the other. But before we go directly into that, let's do a bit of background for anyone not sure what these games are. And I'll try to keep it streamlined. Predecessor and Overprime are both MOBA titles like League of Legends or Dota, or more closely in this case, Smite. But both Predecessor and Overprime are derived from a single game called Paragon. Paragon was a MOBA by Epic Games that through all sorts of unfortunate circumstances failed to fully materialize and eventually ended up in a fairly familiar situation where a major publisher retained the rights to the property title and the original creator is forced to do a new spiritual successor. We've seen this happen before with the creator of Mega Man, the creator of Dead Space, and the team behind Banjo-Kazooie, so it's nothing new. Predecessor is the spiritual successor to Paragon by the now independent original creators, and Overprime is the recreation backed by a major publisher. Thing here is, Overprime started off as an innocent spiritual successor as well, but the independent fan team was scooped up by Netmarble, who then received the blessing of Epic Games to use the Paragon title and logo. Both games though are in early access on Steam and have had closed betas on PS5. PS5 is where I've played tens of hours of both of them, and now with that explanation out of the way, let's talk about the game. Now I'll start off with something that both games share: characters. Both games have a lot of the same characters because Epic Games made a ton of Paragon's old assets free to the public so long as they're used in Unreal Engine. In a MOBA, characters and character designs are very important in terms of attracting and retaining an audience. You want an attractive and diverse body of well-designed characters. And when I say attractive, I mean appealing, not sexy. Although a touch of sex appeal doesn't hurt, I guess. Anyway, the designs of each game's characters really aren't anything insanely eye-catching. These certainly aren't designs of the caliber from a more elite design team like Overwatch or League of Legends or Street Fighter. The character designs on offer are mostly pretty boring or generic, with a few good outliers like Grim EXE. However, Grim EXE is only currently in Overprime and not Predecessor, and that's the thing. While both games share a bunch of characters, there are still differences. And I'd say most of those differences in terms of presentation are in favor of Overprime. The character designs don't completely flip and suddenly become good in Overprime, but colors and generally everything is less flat and gray, resulting in everything being a little more attractive to look at. And there are cases where design changes such as Kalari having a cloak make Overprime's take on the character look significantly better. This is just one of the benefits of having a major publisher funding your project. Additional manpower and not having to worry about simply staying afloat means more gets done. So as you can imagine, compared to the independent Predecessor, Overprime is a bit further along. They have 7 more characters, and what characters they share generally have more detail in Overprime. Overprime's map and overall gameplay also seem a bit more well considered. Overprime seems to have a truer sense of build variety, like the character and items you pick actually matter. Typical of MOBAs, in Overprime many different strategies can be had, and if you're looking to enjoy a MOBA experience, Predecessor can feel a bit off. What Predecessor offers is a simplified take on a MOBA, and it's really fun in its own way, but if you're looking for a genuine MOBA experience, it may not be for you. On paper, there are a lot of items in Predecessor, even more than Overprime. The thing is though, this doesn't result in a lot of strategies. You don't build some characters with a lot of attack speed or movement speed, or build other characters with anti-heal, or build tanks based on pure mitigation or auras or health regen. In fact, you don't really build tank at all. Predecessor is a highly offensive game. If a character isn't capable of high damage output or offering great crowd control, they're pretty much useless. So the solo lane is often dominated by characters who allegedly shouldn't be there because the so-called tank or warrior characters don't stand a chance until the late game oftentimes. And when I say don't stand a chance, I don't mean slightly outclassed, I mean do not stand a chance. And as I said, the only useful or fun to play tank characters are whichever ones do damage or have great crowd control. And once again, Predecessor is this very streamlined version of a MOBA. Often it feels like items don't do anything at all if they don't increase your damage, and characters' roles feel more like bad suggestions, or at the very least, irrelevant suggestions. No matter what role you're in, do damage and you win. And thus, characters who innately do less damage feel awful to play. But if you like the idea of MOBAs but all the hoopla of items and builds and whatnot makes it all a bit much for you, then Predecessor is perfect, because it really breaks all that stuff down and Call of Duty-fies the idea of a MOBA as much as possible. It just seems all too apparent that that was not the intention. If it was, there wouldn't be 90 plus items. But even with all those items in Predecessor, it doesn't take many matches of Overprime to see that Overprime has the more complete game. The map is more full, better thought out, and easier to navigate. Unfortunately, in Predecessor, it's easy to get lost in the jungle because of how similarly dull everything looks. There's also this problem in Predecessor where there are 3 shrouded entry points to every lane from the jungle, but you only get 2 wards, and none of the entry points are super close to a turret. So the map discourages pushing up your minions and makes it nearly impossible not to get ganked, especially if you're a character without an escape. However, Predecessor does not seem concerned with such trivial matters. The game is simple: do damage, kill enemies, worry about the objectives later. Whereas Overprime has taken a more traditional MOBA route and seems to have applied the necessary thought. Not to say that Overprime is perfect, but it's more fully formed and considered. Having said that, Predecessor stands above Overprime in a lot of the performance area. Predecessor feels a lot smoother and more responsive. Comboing abilities or even just continuing basics after an ability can feel sticky and sluggish in Overprime at times. Not to mention, Overprime can't really hold a steady frame rate. I played a lot of a character named Greystone, and in Overprime, his whirlwind ability guarantees frame drops for anyone near him or playing him. I never had a frame issue in Predecessor. There's also the sound design side of all of this. Predecessor has some very good sound design. Every shot from Drongo's gun is a joy to hear, and that cash splash sound effect of spilled coins when you kill something is a chef's kiss. Meanwhile, for some reason, all the audio in Overprime sounds like it's under a pillow. Everything is strangely muffled, and after you've played a while, you'll stop noticing it, but it's extremely off-putting to begin with. I'd also say that the control scheme on PS5 is a little better on Predecessor. They did make some changes mid-closed beta to improve it, but that's what it's for. I'll also give Predecessor one more point by saying, although Overprime's use of color is better and their characters are mostly more detailed and appealing, Predecessor has at least authored its human characters' faces, as opposed to Overprime, whose characters unfortunately suffer from doll face syndrome. But then again, I may need to take that point back, because Overprime actually has skins for all its champions, and good skins at that, so they help spice up a lot of the more boring designs. Once again, a product of actually having money for development. Predecessor has very few skins and not a lot of good ones. At the end of the day, I'd say I personally think Overprime is the better game currently. I had fun on both, but I've had more fun with Overprime. It seemingly being closer to completion makes it a more fun game, and as a person who actually enjoys the MOBA genre, I think I prefer the more MOBA-leaning game. The better map, build variety, and character presentation make me want to play the game more and try other characters. I felt I kinda had to force myself to play other characters in Predecessor because of the gameplay simplicity and how unappealing so many of the characters look with no more attractive alternate skins. However, I do wish Overprime performed and moved with the fluidity of Predecessor, or at the very least sounded as clear, but neither of these two games is a completely made product. I mean, neither one of these games has a place where you can prepare a build beforehand. You just have to go through each match, shuffle through the shop, and find the items again. Admittedly, it's less annoying in Predecessor because builds feel less important in that game, But it's strange for games calling themselves MOBAs not to let me create a build preset. I guess we'll see what each game does in the future. I don't see a world where both of these games end up successful. I can see a world where they both fail or where one wins, but I doubt everyone's gonna be happy when it's all said and done. It'll be very interesting to watch. If you're interested in playing yourself, both games are in early access on Steam. Overprime early access is free. Predecessor is $10, I believe. Or if you have PS5, the Predecessor closed beta is available until January 24th, so you've got a little bit. Unfortunately, by the time you're hearing this, the Overprime closed beta 2 is either over or just about over on PS5. It ends on January 8th. So yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on both of these games. I find this all very interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you've played these games. And please, please, please like the video if you enjoyed. Consider subscribing maybe too. I make at the very least one video a week, often more though. I am a fair and objective source of gaming news and opinions, so I hope you check out more videos. Thanks in advance. Until next time though, I am Waifu Collector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and good luck to both games. Goodbye.